Hey, Care Partners, Teresa Youngstrom. Thanks for coming back. I wanted to reach out and talk to you today about family caregivers. Becoming a family caregiver, what a big task. And frequently families get thrown into this and they're so unprepared. When we're raising our kids, at least when we're raising our kids, they start off as little bitty babies and they sleep a lot and they don't have a whole lot of needs, and then they grow slowly and we learn how to take care of them at a slow pace, and that's a good thing. But to all of a sudden be responsible for another adult, that can be super challenging, and of there are lots of characteristics and dynamics in there that make it a good fit or not a great fit, and there's a lot of learning. And I've told you before that I had been a nurse almost 30 years when my mom threw me out of the blankety blank house. And here I thought I should be able to take care of her. I was a nurse, naturally caregiver. I enjoy taking care of people, and I had so much to learn. So today we want to talk a little bit about family caregivers and what we need to know when all of a sudden this might be dropped in your lap. One thing that I've thought about is that, are you local or not with your parent, or your loved one? If you live with them, that's one thing. But I'm more thinking about parents, or someone in your life that you would be responsible for. Maybe it's a step parent, but the whole thing is difficult. And whether you live near them, today a lot of kids live in other states. My kids do. I have one daughter married that lives in town, but I have a daughter in Florida and I have a son, who lives in Denver. And so if I needed their help, it could be more difficult. And so we're going to talk about that, but location is something to really consider if we're going to take care of a loved one. The other challenging thing is that you may not see the red flags. You may not see them because you're not seeing them on a regular basis. If they live alone, nobody else is really seeing them either, unless they are getting out and they're still being social. But as symptoms arise and problems ensue, they tend to pull in a little bit more, and maybe they're not as social. So maybe people aren't really seeing it. The neighbors might see something. But what's interesting about dementia is that we can a lot of times use the right side of our brain to be cordial and have some idle chit chat. So even though a neighbor says, "Bob, how are you? Good. You? Great. Yeah. Have a great day." And you have this frequently, they have an idle chit chat, unless a part of their brain is dying that affects their ability to have speech, and that happens. But for the most part, most of these individuals keep an idle chit chat. And so it's small talk, and they can do that with the neighbor. They can do that with family members. They can do that with their own doctor. How about that? And the doctor might say, "Well, she looks pretty good," or "He looks pretty good." And they may not, because how long are these doctor's appointments these days? 10 minutes, 15? Yeah, and so maybe they don't see what really is going on. I've told you before, if you're gonna take a loved one to see the doctor, boy, you should make a list what's going on and maybe get that list to that medical person before you come in for the visit. Maybe as your loved one's sitting down in the doctor's office, maybe you hand that to the receptionist and get that to the physician or the PA or whoever it might be, nurse practitioner, so that they can see the bullet points that are going on. And I'm really big on the relationship's so important, and you shouldn't let them put a wedge between you and your loved one. Sometimes they don't realize how they do that, and they might ask your mom certain number of questions. She has idle chit chat. "No, I'm fine." And then they look at you and say, "She looks pretty good. What do you mean she's doing this or that?" And we can't allow that to happen. So anyway, let me back up. So local or not, that can be good or bad when you're going to need to care for somebody. Okay. How's the relationship? How is the relationship? And so, how was the childhood and how was the relationship? Did you move far away because there was reason to move far away? Or was it just a job, or was it just a goal or a dream of yours to live, in Denver? Or, what took you far away? And so the relationship's so important. Um, and it's interesting that even in my own family, I was completely surprised that growing up in a great big family, 8 children, that not everyone else in the family has the same childhood that you do. It can have to do where they are in the lineup. I was number 6 of 8. I don't know, I thought the childhood was great. But depending on where you fell in that lineup and what was going on in life at that point in time, I've been continually surprised when I consult with families that one adult child might have had a completely different family experience, and their relationship with that dad or that mom can be completely different. So, what's the family relationship? What's the size? Are you the only child? Wow, what a big job. I'm so thankful that I had a large family and that we were able to divide and conquer. And the relationship's so important. Do you know not everyone is wired to be a caregiver? What's that mean? Well, I mean, I'm a nurse, definitely wired to care for people. And so caring for my mom, even late in the stages, changing her diaper or giving her a bath and changing her outfit. That wasn't a big deal for me. Came pretty naturally. Yeah, you probably don't want to know I could change your diaper, but it's part of it. And it's just how I'm wired. But not everybody could. And guess what? That's okay. You don't have to be comfortable with that to be a great caregiver. I've said it before that I need your gifts. Maybe you're the organized one. Maybe you're the hirer and firer of home care companies. Maybe that's what you do well. Maybe you manage the money. Maybe that's what you do well. And you can do a budget and you can pay the caregivers or manage their bills and things like that. Those are tasks that are needed too. And, either we make it happen, we figure it out, or we don't do it very well, or we hire it out. And we'll talk more about that. But how about something else that is important is your knowledge of caring for someone living with a dementia. I thought I understood it and I was so wrong. And I had to go get lots and lots of training. It's a good place to give Teepa Snow's organization a good plug. I think they're fabulous. All right. Positive approach to care. They're all over the world and they bring so much wealth of knowledge. And I needed that wealth of knowledge. And you want to know something? I left a big job, went to Charlotte, North Carolina to study with Teepa's group and even with 30 years of experience, I walked away with just, I wasn't an expert or anything. I walked away with an awareness of dementia. That's how I was scored. What? I know, but that's because there's so much to it. And your person's symptoms will be different from mine. We have 120 different diagnoses that give us symptoms of dementia. There are things we need to rule out that maybe it's not even a dementia, maybe it's something that looks like a dementia, a UTI, a thyroid issue. There's just so much more to it, and it's so important that we are constantly gaining more knowledge. And I know lots of families that I've talked to over the years who just try and wing it. They really do because they don't know that there's great, you know, teams and companies out there to come alongside and train us. Or maybe seeking information like that isn't really in their wheelhouse. Okay, but it's a part of it and it'll be part of the solution for your situation or could be part of the problem. But I have a lot of families that do try and wing it. And it probably doesn't end well. They may not understand how to communicate, how to accept and agree, how to reconcile, how to validate, and then redirect. These are all things I had to learn. I had to learn that some of these individuals have an awareness of their deficit and some of them don't, and it's a game changer in what the care plan is going to look like. Because if you can't see that there are challenges, well, I can't I can't keep explaining and I can't finger wag it down and I can't keep reminding you because guess what? You're going to kick me out of the blankety blank house. So, how about the personality of the person who is all of the sudden needing to be a caregiver? Vitally important. Personality is really, really important. Like I said, some of you are wired to be a caregiver, many of you not so much, and that's okay. We're going to figure it out. How about the parents' resources? Um, some people have resources where they can afford to go into a community. Maybe they can afford to bring help in to their home and not have to relocate. What are the resources? Maybe they have a long term care insurance plan. Maybe they don't. Maybe they have great savings that we can apply to their care and hire tons of private duty to come in and help. But maybe they don't. And we have to figure out how to move forward with great care so that they're safe. Um, but we really have to investigate the options if the resources are not there. Do they live alone or not? It was great that my mom lived with my dad and he still was coherent and capable and independent. And so we didn't have to have someone there 24/7 for a very long time. Okay. It was a decade of decline. And we started off just having someone come in a couple hours, a couple days a week. Okay. And that gave him relief. That was extra eyes and hands helping her. It was amazing though. She couldn't see her disease, right? So she didn't think she needed any help. But in our situation, we just told her it was for dad because he was older, and she bought that. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. She bought that hook, line, sinker, and that worked out well because we told her, "Dad's older. He's gonna need help." And she said, "Oh, yeah, he's gonna need help." And, so that made it easy for us, but your situation's gonna be different. We'll have to come up with a creative way to bring help in. We frequently don't tell them what date and time they're showing up. We frequently let them show up and they'll be cordial. They'll use the right side of their brain and be cordial with that person. Okay. So, how do we survive? How do we survive this journey? Because, guys, it's not just flying home for a weekend. It's not while they have their, gallbladder procedure or whatever. It's not like that. This is a journey. Is it going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30 years with a progressive brain changing, memory failure going on? And how do we love this person with that journey? So, how do we survive that? How do we be productive? So, one thing that was pointed out to me, and this was a fact from TIPA, is that only 1 in 5 families stay together after going through this journey with a loved one. What's that? 1 in 5? That's terrible statistics. That stood out to me early on when I started training under TIPA. And I thought, 1 in 5, well, by golly, my family's going to stay together. And so one thing we did was we needed to communicate more because the people who were out of town couldn't see what the folks in town could definitely see. And the siblings who um weren't close or didn't live close or just didn't see them that often. It was harder for them to appreciate. Honestly, though, when they would come to town, whoa, the changes stood out even more blatantly to them. But when they would just call on the phone, my mom could use that idle chit chat. And so it wasn't as obvious. And they might say to one of us that were closer to it, "She seems pretty good." And, so those are definitely challenges. So we set up a group text so that we could communicate better. And you know what? Here it is. My mom's been gone several years. And do you know we still have that group text and it's been fabulous. And so if you have a big family, I would suggest that. You got to communicate. You gotta communicate what's going on today, tomorrow. That doesn't mean you're sending, 20 texts a day or whatever, but we need to communicate and pull together and help because 1 in 5 families stay together after going through this. Now, for us, the group text we had were the siblings, and it didn't include my mom or dad. We needed to be open and honest with each other and figure out who was gonna help when. And sometimes, basically some of the siblings, they just plain had, financial resources and could help in that way, but guess what? It all added up to great care. And fortunately, those relationships grew and we learned to pull together no matter what our differences were, pull together when we needed to pull together, and that was a good thing, and I hope I can strongly share that with your family so that you understand how important that is. Um, so focus on not dividing the group, focus on bringing that group together, okay? We also need to gather more support. What if you're the only child? Yikes. I've counseled several of those individuals. So hard. So hard. But is there a neighbor? Is there someone from the church? Is there someone from the community? Are there distant relatives who would help, but maybe they live 20, 30 minutes away? Maybe they would stop over and spend time with your loved one so that then their spouse could get out, run to the grocery, or just go get their hair cut. How about that? So it's okay to ask, people people come together, there's a new baby or someone's had an operation, we pull together, we set up these meal trains and all kinds of good stuff. But when it's dementia, it's like, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. I have no idea how to help." And people are frequently very much afraid. But how can we engage them? And how can we have an hour or 2 where mom doesn't really need anything? She might wanna play cards, a simple card game. She may wanna just sit and look out the window and watch the bird feeders, but she needs supervision. And can someone from, the local senior group, or can, a relative just come over and spend time and they'd be safe? Um I think people just don't understand how the disease moves, and there's a lot of fear. So we can educate people and bring together more and more resources. So neighbors, people from your local place of worship, community, ask around. I think there are more resources than you know. So ultimately, though, we may need to hire some help because somebody has got to get the legal paperwork together. And hopefully, your parents have already done that. And there are powers of attorneys assigned. The paperwork it's done, and it has been notarized, and the right people have copies, but sometimes not. Hopefully, the advanced directives are done and they're not, 25 years old. Hopefully, they're more current, but sometimes they're not, and we need to get that figured out. So maybe we need to hire an elder law attorney and help us figure out those things. Maybe you need a geriatric care manager because maybe nobody lives in the town where mom and dad are. And a geriatric care manager, it's kind of like having an extra daughter or son in town. The cool thing is they can do visits and communicate with you. They can hire private duty care if that's what is on the list of things to do, and there are resources for that. Um, they can um, they can take your loved one to doctor's appointments, and then they can even set up or take them to physical therapy, occupational therapy, or maybe they need an X-ray to the dentist appointment. Geriatric care managers, it's kind of like having an extra daughter or son in town, and they've got the training to come alongside and be that person who is that medical person there, so that during that season where they need help, but there's no one in town to do it, then we have someone to manage those things. There are times when we need help because we either have to bring help in, guys, or they're gonna have to go to another location. I'm really big on, we don't wanna move them. Someone with memory issues, changing their location is really, really, really tough, and they're gonna spiral down. So it needs to be planned really well, and we definitely want to move to a place where they can stay for a long time. So we really need to consider location, should be near a family member, um, but it needs to be someplace where the reputation is good, they've got great training, We don't want to go to the place where new management has just taken over and all the staff is brand new. We don't want to go to a place where the state has been in there called for reasons, for deficits, for problems. And the thing is, these placement companies, they're great at that, and they have their finger on the pulse for these locations. And the way they work in just several counties, and so they know what's going on in their county, or there's another person several counties over, and they run that county. Does that make sense? So they live in their county where they care for people, where they are the placement organization, and so they know where the good places are to go. And I've been surprised that sometimes they come up with a place I haven't even heard of, but it was a great place. You want the ratio of caregivers to residents to be low, all right? You want the room to be clean and you want security to be great. You don't want your loved one to be able to elope or leave just wandering and then get themselves into trouble. So sometimes we have family who can come along and help, but we definitely need to get education. You can go to my podcast on the website, teresayoungstrom.com, go to the tab that says podcast, gain some more information. We've got Teepa Snow's organization. There's lots of great education out there. So we need to train ourselves in this. We got to bring in help. We either get help. Gosh, guys, it can take us down. If you're the primary caregiver and nobody's helping you, don't turn on the heroics here. I've had I've had daughters who are trying to take care of an older parent, and they're watching the grandkids 3 days a week. And let me tell you, you'll get sick. And there are huge statistics on how many of those people get them jeopardize their health before the person living with dementia. So let's think about that. Let's think about they're either going to bring help in or they're going to go to another place. So let's plan well. Let's always know your plan B. All right. All right, guys. Hopefully these things register with you. Hopefully they'll be helpful. We don't just automatically know how to care for another individual. I didn't. And I'd been a nurse a very long time. Okay. Hope that's helpful. My name's Teresa Youngstrom. Be sure and like and share and subscribe so we can continue to help lots of people. And a big shout out to our broadcaster, Griffo Productions. They do such an excellent job, and we're very fortunate to be a part of that organization. All right, guys, just keep in mind, you got this.